how would you define sin or evil? Sometimes we say, well, something that's just bad or something that hurts somebody, but the way the Bible describes sin and evil is it's disordering God's good world. And we see that in Leviticus. We're going through the Bible in a year, and now we're on Leviticus 11 through 13. And the way God made the world, he made it with order. And so he ordered it in days. He set aside a day to create a different type of part of creation. Day one, light and darkness. Day two, the sky and the water. Day three, the dry land and vegetation. Then he filled the light and darkness on day four with the sun, moon, stars. He filled the sky and the water with fish and birds, and then he filled the land with people and animals on day six. And everything had an order. Then he made humans in God's image, and we're supposed to preserve that life and treasure that life, and that's the ordered world. And they were supposed to put God first, that God was at the center of their life. That's why there was a tree of knowledge of good and evil at the center of the garden. That was supposed to represent that God decides what's good and evil, right and wrong, and God was to be at the center of their life. That was the order. But what happened was sin. When Adam and Eve, they ate from that tree, they wanted to be God, and everything got disordered, all of creation. And so now when God takes Israel out of Egypt and he makes them his own, he uses everything to teach them these spiritual truths. And one of those things that might seem incredibly bizarre to us is part of the rules that they had to live by were these clean, unclean rules. There were clean animals and unclean animals. There were clean garments and unclean garments. There was a clean skin and unclean skin. They were unclean if they touched a dead body or bodily fluids. Well, what is all this about? They were unclean if they had garments sewn with two different types of fabric. Their fields were unclean if they sowed two different types of seeds together. Well, these were not necessarily morally wrong. There's nothing morally wrong with eating pork. There's nothing morally wrong with having different types of garments. There's nothing morally wrong with having a skin disease. There's nothing morally wrong but with menstrual cycle or bodily functions or things like that, or even having to take care of a dead body. That's not moral, but these were teaching something, that God's good world had been disordered. And so, for example, the clean, unclean foods. Well, they couldn't eat animals that didn't seem to fit into a clear day of creation. Not that he didn't create bats or flying insects or things like that, but it was to teach that the order that you learn about in creation, that God created things according to order. And it seems like bats and flying insects were rebelling against that order. They didn't fit into a clean day. They didn't fit into creation in that order. Same thing with bodily functions. God created this world to be filled with abundance and life. And when bodily fluids leave our body, especially the ones for nocturnal emissions, it says, or menstrual cycle, that was a symbol, was to teach something of life leaving the body. And God is the author of life, and he doesn't, and so that goes against, in a sense, in a teaching way, as a visual aid of who God is. When you touch a dead body, that's the absence of life. And so these, and skin disease, our skin, instead of having a pure complexion or a pure body, now skin it was like sin, where it's kind of taken over our body, infected us. Same thing with mold on garments. It's kind of infected it. It seems disordered. So these were teaching tools. There was nothing, again, morally wrong with any of these things, and God did create all these things, and it's part of how the world works, but they kind of represent what sin has done to this world. It's taken away life. It's disordered our world. And so with everything that God had them do, especially in Leviticus, they were all visual aids. The sacrifices, the sacrificial system, the ceremonies, the clean, unclean laws. These were all teaching tools of spiritual truths that God designed life and order to make things flourish, but because of sin, we have disordered God's good world. Okay, hopefully that helps. Keep reading, don't give up.